English and French settler identities, the two so-called founding nations. They're called founding nations in Canada's sort of national story about itself. So from the two founding nations to one that includes indigenous nations and identities and histories. And that shift in national identity is a political shift. It's a result of a particular political moment. And these changes that happen everywhere and constantly, these changes in policy, in identity, in orientation, changes in the things we take for granted, all of these are a result of politics. And you may also know that there's a fair amount of opposition to land acknowledgements. Some of that opposition comes from the right. It comes from people who do not wish to acknowledge the prior inhabitants of the land, who might take the position that this is Canada and that the land belongs to those who live and work on it today, belongs to the cities and churches and school boards and universities and private individuals who bought that land fair and square. So here's an example of a so-called land acknowledgement that takes the position that Indigenous people never had possession of any land in North America because they did not farm that land. This person is using the same principle, Locke's labor theory of value, that settlers and colonists did hundreds of years ago to establish their claim on the land. So the statement is this: I acknowledge that by the labor theory of property, the Coast Salish people can claim historical ownership of almost none of the land currently occupied by the University of Washington. In 2021, the government of New Brunswick actually prohibited public sector employees from making land acknowledgements. And the reason that they gave, the reason that they prohibited them, is that land acknowledgements might strengthen Indigenous treaty claims. So in both of these cases, opposition to land acknowledgements is coming from the right wing of the political spectrum. It's coming from people who hold conservative political positions and values, and they may object to any land claims that are not based on principles of private property, where a person who buys a piece of land owns it, full stop. But opposition to land acknowledgements also comes from the left. Many Indigenous people feel that the land acknowledgements don't have the power that they wish they did. People like me just say them at the beginning of a class or at the beginning of a meeting, and then they move on without any further thought about what obligations a land acknowledgement imposes on us. So, for example, if this is the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat and the Seneca and the Mississaugas of the Credit River, they might ask, then what are we doing here? And when are we going to give the land back? What's the point, they might ask, of admitting that this land was taken if that admission is not going to lead to anything else? So some people argue that the land acknowledgements have become little more than another quote unquote move to innocence. So a move to innocence is anything a person does to expiate their guilt or the guilt that they ought to be feeling. So for example, if I recite the land acknowledgement at the beginning of each lecture, I may be doing it in order to demonstrate that I myself am blameless in this whole land claim business. So I might be engaged in virtue signaling and nothing else. And not only that, but my move to innocence enables me to avoid doing something more meaningful or more materially productive. So the worry from the left side of the political spectrum is mainly that the land acknowledgement is nothing more than a symbolic gesture. Nevertheless, and here I'm going to complicate this a little further, from the perspective of politics, symbolism matters. The national anthem is also symbolic. Canada chose a national anthem that was originally a French song. It was a song that was commissioned to celebrate Saint Jean Baptiste Day in 1880. And it's a symbol. The reason a French song